And another massive data breach raising new concerns about cybersecurity. This time, luxury retailers Saks Fifth Avenue and Lord & Taylor, both hit by a well-known ring of cyber criminals that stole more than 5 million credit and debit card numbers from customers of their parent company, Hudson's Bay. The data firm that uncovered the breach says the hackers began to steal the information in May of 2017, continuing through last month. While the extent is unclear, the firm says 125,000 records were put up for sale on the dark web. The company that owns both retail chains declined to identify how many customer accounts or stores were affected and just when. Joining me now is Shawn Henry, former Executive Assistant Director of the FBI and an MSNBC cybersecurity analyst. Shawn, first of all, what is the obligation of Hudson Bay to disclose to their customers that this has taken place?
You know, when we see a breach like this, companies oftentimes bring out their outside counsel in to take a look and see what their disclosure obligations are. When you're using credit cards, when certain pieces of information are taken, organizations are required oftentimes to reveal that publicly. Unfortunately, there are about 48 different laws. Different states have different laws, so it really requires the lawyers to navigate kind of a treacherous minefield.
Now, Saks put out a statement saying, "We have identified the issue, have taken steps to contain it. Once we have more clarity around the facts, we will notify our customers quickly and will offer those impacted free identity protection services, including credit and web monitoring." So we don't know when they first learned of it, and so how tardy they are in any kind of consumer notification. But this was different. This was actually going into their payroll systems. Right. So it was an inside job?
Not necessarily. We've seen organizations before. I've seen banks that have been hacked, actors who've gotten into the back office, if you will, of the organization to manipulate data, to open up fraudulent accounts, to transfer money using automated clearinghouse transfers, to wire money. So it's not really clear exactly what they had access to, but it's not unusual for the actors, especially the fact that the company that identified this said that they'd been in since May of 2017. You're talking about almost a full year completely undetected. And when adversaries have that much access for that long a period of time, there's going to be trouble.
And Russians, what could they have gotten besides the credit card information? Social security numbers? Would Saks have that kind of data in their system as well?
Well, you think oftentimes companies collect information to extend lines of credit. It's not clear what they had access to, but the type of information that people provide when they're applying for credit, when they're using the store credit system, they may have had access to all that information, in addition to potentially information about employees, some of the personal data that organizations might maintain for their employees.
What should people do who are Saks customers or have credit cards with Saks or Lord & Taylor?
Well, I think in this case, the credit monitoring is a good thing, but this really is a much broader issue. When I think about the consumers, there's limited things that they're able to do to protect themselves. What we have to see going forward is these organizations protecting their networks to stop these attacks from occurring. There's something we call dwell time, which means the time the actor gets on the network until the time they're able to get off or they're detected. A year is too long. Organizations need to be much more aggressive in patrolling their networks because they've got to protect consumer data.
Now, let me ask you about the battle of the IT giants. Tim Cook versus Mark Zuckerberg. Tim Cook with Kara Swisher and Chris Hayes on the MSNBC program, critical of Facebook. And now Mark Zuckerberg striking back at Tim Cook. Let's watch.
You know, I find that argument that if you're not paying, that somehow we can't care about you to be extremely glib, right? And not at all aligned with the truth. You know, the reality here is that if you want to build a service that helps connect everyone in the world, then there are a lot of people who can't afford to pay. And therefore, as with a lot of media, having an advertising supported model is the only rational model that can support building the service to reach people. That doesn't mean that we're not primarily focused on serving people. I think probably to the dissatisfaction of our sales team here, and I make all of our decisions based on what's going to matter to our community and improve the experience, and focus much less, and very little on the advertising side of the business.
So what are the implications of this? Zuckerberg beginning to speak out, but still has not spoken out publicly on a broad enough platform, arguably. That was on Vox. and still under pressure by a number of committees to show up on Capitol Hill?
Well, I think this all comes down to one word, and it's privacy. I think that for far too long, consumers have been afraid of the government, what the government's collecting, and I think what we're learning now is that the private sector, the commercial sector, is collecting a lot of data, which they then can use to monetize, whether it be through advertising or selling that data. This is something that Congress is absolutely going to look at. They may look to regulate it, and it's something that I think American consumers are becoming much more aware of, and they may decide to change their purchase habits based on how the retailers or other organizations are collecting and, most importantly, protecting their data.
And these companies are losing a whole lot of market cap as well, so that may be the most important determinant. Thank you so much. It's good to see you, Shawn. Be well.